what's going on? I'm Eugene Napoleon. This is Napoleon's Corner. I hope all is well. This is actually episode 154. But before I get started, please like and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate your support. As I just stated, this is episode 154. And today's topic and title actually is Embrace the Hard Times. Embrace the Hard Times. Love this particular episode because I'm going to go somewhere that I'm really comfortable with. It sounds weird to say that, but the difficult times really is what makes you. And you got to learn how to embrace it. So you have to embrace it. You have to embrace it all. You know, the good times, the bad times, the in-between times, you have to learn how to embrace it all. So, you know, being comfortable when you're uncomfortable is such an interesting place to be because most people don't know how to deal with that. And that's your edge. So I'm actually giving you a little bit of the secret sauce right now. That really is your edge. You know, I like to call it back in the day, and I didn't tell too many people this, so I'm actually giving up a little secret here. So for me, it was the 10-90 rule. And the 10-90 rule simply meant back in the day when you had probably 100, maybe 110, but I'm going to say like 100 kids on your roster, including walk-ons. No matter what we did, there's only going to be about 10% that's going to follow when times are really rough, when times are difficult, when times are hard. And that 90% will fail. That 90% will fall to the wayside. So in my head, I always want to be in that 10%, no matter what it was, right? Running sprints. I used to run the stadium steps after practice and touch every step. Right after practice. There wasn't too many people out there doing that with me. So that's what my point of that 10-90 rule in my head. 10%, no, they was not out there after a hard grueling practice talking about you're going to run and touch every step in Mountaineer Field. You get a totally different understanding of how big that stadium is when you're running the steps, right? I didn't do it. I did it because it was another way of getting in shape and staying in shape and then mentally pushing yourself past that threshold, again, when things get hard and things get difficult. So being comfortable when you're uncomfortable and also putting yourself in and setting the parameters for that. So when things are hard, you know how to press through, you know how to push through, you know how to punch through. So embrace that 10-90 rule. You know, only 10% of the people will embrace hard times. Only 10% are going to embrace dark times, rainy days, things when things get real tough and you don't want to deal anymore, you collapse. So if you learn how to embrace the hard times, technically, it doesn't matter what it is. You'll be able to get through it and persevere because you're built that way. You're already set up that way. So you have to learn, you don't have to, but if I'm saying, when I hear people talk about the successes that they want, and they don't understand that hard times are going to come, it's part of life. That's actually part of everyone's evolution in their personal growth is difficult and hard times. So again, another little ditty I would give you for my secret sauce has always been, no matter what I'm doing, I'm going to do the hard part or the more difficult part first. Simple. No matter what it is, I'm going to do the hardest part or the more difficult part first. Get it out of the way. So again, that's a mentality that most people don't have. But I've always been that way. Ever since I was a little guy, I've always been that way. So I'm giving you a little bit of some nuances, a little bit of the way that I think. And again, this is not anything new. I can remember, I'll go back as far as 6, 7 years old with that mentality. It served me well over the years because once again, I know already how hard I'm going to work and I'm not going to be outworked. I already know that. So again, it can be 100 people in the room and we're going for the same job or we're going to do the same we have the same goals. But I know when hard time rears its ugly head, when difficult times pop up, when rainy days happen, 90% of those people aren't going to be there. They're going to fold. And I know that. They're going to fold. It's very consistent. Imagine this. Once again, we'll use the football analogy of a team of 100, including walk-ons. And all of a sudden, you had a real tough hour and a half practice, physical practice. And then all of a sudden, the coach says, you know what? I want to run ladders. So what I call ladders is when you're doing 10 100s, 990s, 880s, 770s, 660s, 550s, 440s, 330s, 210s, and 220s and 110. That's what I call a ladder, right? So could you imagine if all of a sudden the coach says after, like I said, an hour and a half, 2 hours of a grueling physical practice, he blows whistle and says, you know what? I'm going to get some extra conditioning in. Here's what we're going to do. By position, we're going to start with the offense first. Running backs up, and you're going to do those ladders. Quarterbacks, those ladders. Linemen, those ladders. Receivers, those ladders. You know, again, out of a roster of 100, I wonder if 10% will complete those ladders in the time period in which each position had to complete that particular task. It's one to grow on. I can guarantee you this. I would. Because the one thing that I assured myself as a running back, it wasn't so much that I loved conditioning and running. It was the fact that I knew if I can out-condition anybody else because I made it that much more difficult on myself to do it in crunch time when I had to do it. So for instance, that's why I would run the stadium stairs after practice. That's why I would do my ladders after practice. So, case being, I've already pushed my body mentally and physically past the threshold of giving up, past that threshold of being physically just worn out and tired, and the fatigue and the pain that comes into that. I've gauged myself and kind of understood where my threshold was. But the only way you figure that out is when you embrace hard times. When you push yourself mentally and physically past that threshold and you know exactly where you are. So when you have to do it, it's nothing. It's nothing. You can do it. So, and it doesn't matter. I'm using a sports analogy, but that's in every phase of life. Doesn't really matter what it is, what the occupation is. That's in every phase of life. You have to learn how to embrace the hard times, the more difficult times, when you can look around and you see people just wilting away, just give it up. They don't know how to get past that mental pain, that physical pain. They don't know how because they never pushed themselves that far. The secret is that 1090 rule. Be part of the 10%. Not the 90% that's going to give up when, like I said, difficult times and hard times come. Be that 10% that's going to keep on going, keep on climbing, keep on pushing, keep on running. Be part of that 10% that's going to make sure that no matter what you do during those times when everybody else around you is falling, you're going to stand strong in the face of adversity. Doesn't matter what it is. Again, I did use a football analogy, but this is a life lesson that I'm saying now with this particular episode. Embrace the hard times. So when they come, you can bet your bottom dollar they will. That's part of life. You'll be part of that 10% that's going to still be standing in the end. I'm Eugene Napoleon. This is Napoleon's Corner. Thank you for your time. I'll see you next week.